A petition is gaining attention with one clear demand: remove Prince Harry from the Invictus Games completely. The people behind it are not asking for reforms, reviews, or more transparency. They want him gone and say their goal is to protect veterans, not attack them.
A growing scandal involving Prince Harry and his last remaining genuine charity project, the Invictus Games. But is it really a charity project at all?
These supporters are not against military programs, adaptive sports, or the mission of helping injured service members compete at a high level. Instead, they argue the organization is no longer serving veterans as effectively as it should, and they believe Harry's continued leadership role is part of the problem. That is what separates this petition from the usual criticism seen online. Supporters say they back the Invictus mission, but question how it is being managed. As Birmingham preparations continue, attention is growing around sponsorship declines, public funding concerns, reports of royal distance, and financial questions that continue to spark debate. By the end of this, you'll have a clearer picture of where the Invictus Games stand ahead of the event Prince Harry is expected to attend, no matter what the petition claims or what critics and supporters decide to believe.
Australia has done a U-turn. They had previously cut funding for the Invictus Games, but now veteran backlash has forced them to bring it back.
The numbers are where most of the debate begins. They help explain why the petition exists and why preparations for Birmingham are drawing so much attention. The latest Invictus Games in Vancouver and Whistler featured 543 wounded and recovering service members from 23 countries. The competition took place over several days in venues across British Columbia, with athletes participating in a range of adaptive sports. The event showcased competitors dealing with both physical and psychological injuries connected to military service. On the surface, it was a major international operation and a significant logistical achievement. The Invictus concept has earned recognition for bringing together veterans from different nations, giving them a platform to compete, and helping change public perceptions about injury and recovery. Supporters point to its positive impact, but critics continue to focus on one issue: cost. Reports place the total Vancouver Games budget at roughly $63.2 million. With 543 competitors, that works out to about $118,000 per participant. That figure has become a major talking point in discussions surrounding the event.
Harry's heartbreak as the showbiz elite dump the Sussex.
Comparisons have added even more scrutiny. The Warrior Games in the United States, which also focuses on wounded service members competing in adaptive sports, reportedly operates on a much smaller annual budget. Reports have also highlighted adaptive sports events in Germany that were organized at a fraction of the cost. Critics argue the difference is not minor. They question how resources are allocated and how much of the overall budget directly benefits participants compared to the operational structure surrounding the event. The funding breakdown has also raised questions.
I think that will be the beginning of the end for Meghan as a public figure, because this is a man that she's abandoned. Just awful. It will be shame on you, Meghan.
Reports indicate that about $15 million came from the Canadian federal government and another $15 million from British Columbia, putting public contributions at roughly $30 million for a single edition of the Games. Critics have focused on another detail that continues to raise questions. Reports claim public funding did not go directly to the event itself. Instead, the money was routed through a separate corporation, which then paid a licensing fee to the British charity that owns the Invictus name. The amount of that fee was reportedly redacted from public documents. That missing figure quickly became a major point of interest. While charities often use licensing agreements and layered corporate structures, critics argue that a redacted amount in documents connected to publicly funded projects naturally attracts attention. The issue is not necessarily the structure itself, but the lack of visibility around a figure tied to public money. For many observers, The concern is simple. If public funds helped support the event, they want to know how those funds were allocated. Because the licensing fee amount was removed, questions about transparency only grew louder.
Invictus Games for Wounded Warriors, which sounds like the Wounded Warrior Games. And people think, oh, this must be great. And a lot of people are unclear how to read a tax return or to check stats. And so I think it was just very easy to say, oh, the Invictus Games, it's great. It does all this. And then, you know, you start looking into it and you're like, hey, what the heck is going on here? You know, those 535 competitors had to pay their own way. They had to pay their own housing for the games. They had to pay for their own equipment.
Scrutiny increased further when the Invictus Games Foundation's 2024 accounts were filed. People already examining the Vancouver costs began digging into the new figures almost immediately. According to reports, direct grants to veterans organizations dropped by roughly 63%, falling from more than £500,000 to around £200,000, even as foundation income reportedly increased by over 40%. The accounts also reportedly showed several other changes that caught attention. A new executive role with a six-figure salary appeared in the filings. Cash reserves reportedly rose above £2 million, while legal expenses increased significantly, climbing from about £45,000 to roughly £155,000, with limited public explanation available at the time. Observers also pointed to reports that an American for-profit company received close to £30,000, with few publicly available details about the services provided. That sparked additional discussion among those already questioning financial oversight. Another detail generated debate as well. Critics noted what appeared to be two different company registration numbers listed in the same filing, one on the cover page and another on the balance sheet. Whether it was an administrative mistake, a result of restructuring, or something else entirely, some observers viewed it as another sign of broader transparency concerns surrounding the organization.
The $63 million Invictus Games spend into the mainstream media.
An organization managing events with this level of cost and public attention cannot easily brush off questions about filings or administrative inconsistencies, regardless of the explanation. When financial records become part of a larger public debate, even small details can attract major scrutiny. Now the spotlight shifts to Birmingham, because that is where many of these concerns are expected to play out in public. Reports suggest the preparation picture is proving challenging. While the Vancouver Games reportedly had more than 40 corporate sponsors, Birmingham is said to have secured around 11, contributing an estimated £4 million combined. That drop has become one of the biggest talking points surrounding the upcoming event. Going from more than 40 sponsors to roughly 11 is not a small change. It represents a major shift in corporate participation between two editions of the same games. Critics and analysts have pointed to this decline as a sign worth watching. Corporate sponsors typically conduct detailed reviews before attaching their names to large public events. Those reviews often include assessments of branding, public perception, financial considerations, and long-term reputation risks. One of the most discussed examples is Boeing. The company was a major presenting sponsor during the Vancouver Games and has long-standing connections to military and veteran communities around the world. Because Invictus serves wounded and recovering service members, many viewed the partnership as a natural fit. Reports indicate Boeing did not renew its sponsorship for Birmingham. Neither side has publicly provided a detailed explanation, which has fueled further speculation and discussion. Large corporations rarely make sponsorship decisions casually. At that level, partnerships often go through legal checks, communications reviews, reputational assessments, and multiple layers of executive approval. That is why changes in sponsorship support are attracting so much attention as Birmingham approaches. Large sponsorship decisions go through extensive review because the risks work both ways.
Some of the key lines from Paula's brand new and really jaw-dropping reporting this week. And of course, she's been very careful because we know how litigious Prince Harry can be, but this is really extraordinary stuff. So Paula reports, the most recent games held in Vancouver and Whistler in February 2025 brought together 543 wounded military veterans from 23 countries. The total cost 63.2 million Canadian, or approximately $118,352.
A company can face criticism for staying connected to a partnership that later becomes controversial, or for leaving a legitimate cause too soon. Reports show Boeing ultimately chose not to continue its sponsorship, and critics argue the decision sends a message on its own. Supporters, however, say sponsorship choices are often influenced by many factors and should not automatically be viewed as a judgment on the organization. Both perspectives continue to fuel debate. What remains clear is the change in numbers. More than 40 sponsors were reportedly involved in Vancouver, compared with around 11 for Birmingham. That gap has brought increased attention to public funding. The UK government has committed up to £26 million toward the Birmingham Games. Critics have questioned whether taxpayers should shoulder more of the financial burden when corporate participation appears to have declined so sharply. The issue has become part of a wider public discussion, especially given Birmingham's well-publicized financial pressures in recent years. Supporters argue the Games provide value through veteran support and international visibility, while critics continue to question the funding model and long-term sustainability. There have also been reports suggesting some professionals may be hesitant to pursue roles connected to the Birmingham operation because of ongoing public scrutiny. These claims are difficult to independently verify, but they have added another layer to the conversation. Events of this size depend on experienced professionals in project management, logistics, communications, sponsorship relations, and operations. If recruitment becomes more challenging for any reason, organizers could face additional hurdles on top of existing financial and sponsorship concerns. As Birmingham approaches, those questions remain a key part of the debate surrounding the Games. Another detail drawing attention involves the senior royals and what their absence may signal about the current relationship between the monarchy and the Invictus Games. According to reports citing sources connected to the event, no senior royals are expected to attend the Birmingham launch, including King Charles, Prince William, or Catherine. That has become a major talking point because Invictus was once widely seen as Prince Harry's most successful public project. In its early years, it attracted support from across the political spectrum and earned praise even from people who disagreed with Harry and Meghan on other issues. The Games benefited from strong public goodwill and visible royal backing. Those early events carried a level of ceremonial importance that came from their connection to the royal institution. The presence of senior royals helped signal stability, legitimacy, and long-term support to donors, sponsors, governments, and the wider public. That connection became an important part of the event's public image. Observers note that this institutional support played a role in helping Invictus attract significant sponsorships and funding during its earlier stages. Because of that history, the lack of senior royal attendance at Birmingham is being closely watched. Some view it as more than a family matter and instead see it as a reflection of how the institution currently positions itself in relation to Harry's projects. To be clear, senior royals missing Invictus events is not entirely new. Since Harry stepped back from royal duties in 2020, joint appearances have become far less common. However, critics argue the timing is notable, coming amid ongoing debate about sponsorship declines, financial scrutiny, and the growing Petition campaign. Taken together, these developments have created a very different atmosphere around Birmingham compared with the earlier years of the Games, adding another layer to an already intense public discussion. Critics argue that the bigger story is not any single decision, but a pattern of decisions being made by different institutions. Corporate sponsors, government bodies, and royal figures all make choices independently. Yet some observers believe the overall direction of those choices has become difficult to ignore. A single withdrawal or absence can often be explained on its own. However, critics say that when multiple organizations reach similar conclusions around the same time, it naturally attracts greater attention and sparks more questions. At the center of the debate are the veterans themselves, because supporting wounded and recovering service members has always been the core mission of the Invictus Games. Reports about participant experiences at the Vancouver event have become some of the most discussed and emotional aspects of the controversy. According to various reports, some competitors covered parts of their own travel, accommodation, or equipment expenses through personal funds or support networks. The event reportedly provided competition venues, sports facilities, and other event-related resources. But questions have been raised about how certain participant costs were handled. At the same time, media reports covering appearances by Prince Harry and Meghan at Invictus events have highlighted travel arrangements, accommodations, and wardrobe expenses. One widely circulated claim suggested Meghan's clothing costs for public appearances reached approximately $180,000, although that figure has been disputed and has not been independently verified. Whether that specific number is accurate or not, critics say the perception gap is what matters most. Images of veterans managing expenses while public attention focuses on high-profile figures have created strong reactions among some supporters and observers. For many people backing the petition, the concern is not rooted in complex financial analysis. It is about priorities and appearances. Emotional concerns like these can have a powerful impact because they touch directly on the reason many donors support charitable causes in the first place. The belief that resources are helping the people the organization was created to serve. Once public confidence starts to weaken, rebuilding it can be difficult. In response to criticism, the foundation has pointed to reports stating that 92% of every pound is spent on charitable activities. Supporters see that as evidence of strong commitment to the mission, while critics argue the phrase covers a wide range of expenses beyond direct participant support. Charitable activities can include event organization, venue costs, travel, communications, administration, and other operational expenses. These costs can be legitimate parts of running a large international event. However, critics continue to ask how much of that spending directly benefits veterans compared with the amount required to operate the games themselves. That distinction has become one of the most debated issues surrounding Invictus. Supporters emphasize the value of the experience, competition, and community provided to participants. Critics focus on whether the balance between operational spending and direct participant support represents the most effective use of charitable and public funds. For some observers, the central question is straightforward. If overall costs are high, how much of that spending reaches the competitors themselves, and how much supports the broader structure around the event? That question has fueled much of the ongoing financial scrutiny. Critics argue that more detailed financial breakdowns would help answer those concerns. While public communications have often highlighted the mission, athlete stories, and positive outcomes, some observers say additional transparency could provide a clearer understanding of how resources are allocated and how costs compare with results. Another point frequently raised by critics involves Centibal, the charity Prince Harry co-founded in memory of Princess Diana. Reports from 2025 describe significant internal disputes within the organization, including board resignations, legal proceedings, and public disagreements involving senior figures connected to the charity. Those events are separate from Invictus, but some critics reference them as part of a broader discussion about governance, leadership, and accountability. Supporters argue the situations should be considered independently, while critics view them as connected examples that deserve closer examination. As a result, questions about transparency and management continue to remain part of the wider conversation surrounding Harry's charitable projects. Prince Harry has disputed many of the claims made about these situations, and several of the issues involve conflicting accounts from different parties. Even so, critics point to the public outcomes as significant. In the case of Sentebale, a charity Harry helped establish and strongly supported, reports described serious internal challenges, leadership disputes, and highly public disagreements that attracted widespread attention. African Parks, where Harry has served on the board, has also faced separate allegations that received major media coverage. Supporters argue these matters are often presented without enough context, and that organizations connected to Harry face a level of scrutiny that many comparable figures do not experience. There is an argument that royal-linked organizations naturally attract more attention than typical charities. Media coverage of Harry-related projects is often shaped by the broader public debate surrounding the Sussexes, which can influence how events are interpreted and discussed. Even with that in mind, critics continue to focus on what they view as a recurring pattern. They point to governance disputes, board departures, public accusations, and legal challenges appearing across multiple organizations linked to Harry within a relatively short period of time. Critics argue that repeated issues across separate institutions naturally invite closer examination. Supporters counter that every organization faces unique circumstances and should be judged on its own facts rather than grouped together under one narrative. Importantly, most observers, including many critics, do not question Harry's interest in the causes themselves. Instead, the debate centers on management, oversight, and transparency. The key question being raised is whether organizations connected to major public funding and charitable donations are providing enough information and accountability to satisfy growing calls for independent scrutiny. Based on the information currently available, many of the questions surrounding Invictus remain unresolved. Critics argue that the foundation has not fully clarified concerns about governance, finances, and transparency. While supporters maintain that the organization continues to deliver meaningful benefits to veterans around the world, one thing appears certain: Birmingham is expected to move forward as planned. Prince Harry is still expected to attend, government funding has already been committed, and the absence of senior royals is unlikely to affect the event itself. The petition may have generated headlines, but it is not expected to change those immediate plans. The bigger debate centers on what happens next. Critics want answers about sponsorship declines, operational spending, licensing arrangements, and how resources are distributed throughout the organization. They argue these questions deserve clear responses, rather than being pushed aside until public attention fades after the games conclude. Supporters of Invictus point to the event's original purpose and the documented impact it has had on many wounded and recovering service members. They argue that bringing veterans together through international competition can create lasting benefits, build confidence, and change public perceptions in powerful ways. Critics, however, question whether the growing scale of the operation has created new challenges. They ask whether organizational costs have increased to a point where donors, sponsors, and governments are seeking greater accountability before committing future support. One point often overlooked is that many petition supporters say they still believe in the mission itself. Their argument is not necessarily against Invictus as an idea. Instead, they believe changes are needed within the leadership and governance structure. For them, the petition represents a call for accountability and a demand for what they see as a different direction for the organization moving forward. For many supporters, reaching this point has not been easy. These are often people who say they still believe in the mission, but have become concerned about how the organization is being managed. That is why critics argue the petition should be viewed as a sign of deeper concerns rather than the issue itself. The biggest question is not whether Prince Harry will be in Birmingham. He is expected to be there. The real question is whether concerns about transparency, governance, spending, and support for veterans have been fully addressed before the games begin. Many observers believe that clear answers would help ease much of the ongoing debate. If those concerns remain unresolved, critics argue the same questions could continue long after Birmingham ends. Discussions about sponsorships, funding, leadership, and accountability are unlikely to disappear on their own, especially as future editions of the games are planned. Whether you believe the petition is justified or goes too far, whether you think the financial scrutiny is fair or politically driven, and whether you see the absence of senior royals as significant or not, share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like, subscribe, and share the video so more people can join the conversation. Your support helps the channel continue covering major stories, complex debates, and the details that often get overlooked. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned, because there will be plenty more to discuss.